Alright, so we're up to style. Please excuse my gaming cords down here. This is the setup I got. It's a freaking mess. Okay, so we pause from actually putting pencil on paper for a moment to talk about style. The way you draw, anyway, your pencil should need sharpening. If you have been cartooning whilst reading this book, you will have already noticed that you have a certain style. That is a way of drawing, an individual appearance to your work. Like handwriting, a drawing style is unique to each person. Although you might like to study and copy the work of other cartoonists, virtually every cartoonist started trying to draw like the artist they most admired. Ultimately, your own personal style will emerge. It will be the way you feel most comfortable when drawing. Just as trying to copy someone's handwriting each time you write would be a drag, the same can be said about continually trying to draw like someone else. Your style might be smooth and sophisticated, childlike and innocent, sketchy and rough. Whatever it is you, and it is the style that you should continue to refine and develop. Only that way will you achieve the confidence of line and individuality of the great cartoonists. Animals. It's often said that people prefer the company of animals to humans. Many cartoonists do. At least they prefer drawing them. Apart from the obvious changes in their appearance, all the cartooning hints I've given so far apply to animals as well. Play around with shapes, add circles and dots, the nose, ears, and mouth, and a funny body and legs. They look awesome. Often the same funny shape can be adapted to various animals. Humanimals. Don't try and find the above word in the dictionary. It doesn't exist. Not as far as I'm aware anyway. I use it to describe the cartoonist's way of giving animals human features, as opposed to page 28 where animals act like some humans but still look like animals. Team logos are a good example of animal heads on human bodies. Once you get started on these, you won't be able to stop. Note, the correct word for the above is anthropomorphism. Anthropomorphism? Okay, that's a big word. I challenge you to try and say that. Not only does it apply to animals, but to fruit, plants, and inanimate objects as well. Let's see, that looks cool. I like the bulldog. He's quite cool. And the bird. Fruit and plants. These are simple to draw and make interesting cartoons, especially on greeting cards, letterheads, flyers, and posters. By applying the earlier hints, you can create an endless supply of amusing, fun-looking characters. I've seen a lot of these on. I've worked in produce, and a lot of like the prepackaged tomatoes, like and things like that. They have like things like this, so it's quite neat. He's an apple, but you know, even on the apple packaging for on the boxes they come in and things. I always took a liking to those. Cartoonist cliches. Almost an official set of cliches has developed over the years to help cartoonists convey specific ideas to their readers. There is nothing unoriginal or wrong in using them. In fact, there may even be occasions where not using them is a mistake. You can be assured of immediate reader communication with cliches. Here is a selection, but I'm sure you can come up with lots more. Commas around the character show it's moving, and a squiggle or shadowy shape beneath it tells us it's in midair. See, there's the shadow there. That's don't take notice of that. That's my fingers. uh, a light bulb tells your readers the character has a bright idea, or the character has had a bright idea. Stars and planets indicate a crash, collision, or punch. To make a character run, add a squiggle below it, and it becomes airborne. Cloud-like shapes behind give it a wake. The smaller rectangles are paper caught in the wake. Droplets show the character perspiring, and shading in the cheek area gives the impression that the character is hot from running. Finally, streaky lines trailing behind give it speed. So, okay, just Captain Obvious over here is going to point out that's the papers there. And we've got the dust cloud. A combination of all these. See, even I didn't realize that there was so much more to it than just streaky lines, because that's all I'd do. So yeah, so if you can add like streaky lines, the dust cloud, the little speech marks sort of thing, these motion lines here, and the sweat droplets and things, all that just adds together and looks really cool. The double take turns the character quickly. So there he is there. He's sort of like, huh? And then, what's this one? Droplets around the eyes can also tell us the character is crying. The more drops, the more intense the crying. Putting eyeballs or pupils outside their sockets means the character has been startled or is terrified. Stars, rings, and various sized circles are the cliches for not being dazed or stunned. For being dazed or stunned. Note the position of the character's eyeballs. Cross-eyed is another good cliche. Sorry, I've got wobbling around a bit here. S lines show the character has been zigzagging. With or without a saw cutting through a log, Z is the universal sign for sleeping and snoring. Screech. Sparks and puffs of dust give the impression of stopping suddenly. Hearts show a character in love or smitten. There are many, many good cliches, and it is a good idea to keep an sorry. There are many, many cartoon cliches, and it is a good idea to keep in a file examples of those you like or what to use. Okay, well, we got there. It took me a bit to read that. What have we got? Less is more or less. Some artists will argue that cartoons should be simple and uncomplicated with a minimum of line work and background, and that a good, crisp, clean drawing is the way to go. On the other hand, there are hundreds of successful cartoonists and comic strip artists who feel every available dot of space they are given. The choice is personal. There are no hard and fast rules. Below are two examples of the same illustration. The one that appeals most to you is probably the style you will choose to follow. However, there is no reason to be locked into one or the other. It will depend on the drawing you are doing at the time and the style that most suits it. If it feels good, draw it. So obviously here we have the minimalist lines. I think that looks quite cool too. And he's like a shadow there. And here it's like detail, 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 right down to the dots on his shirt. See, it's pretty crazy. And they got a little pencil dude sitting there. Yeah, pretty cool. A sneaky hint: hide it until you can draw it. Chances are, when you begin to draw cartoons, there will be elements which will worry you. Something that you find hard to capture on paper the way you see it in your head. This can cause the lack of confident line in your entire piece of work. Lack of a confident line in your entire piece of work. If you follow my number one hint and practice, 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 eventually the problems will cease to exist. But until then, you might find it easier to draw around or hide the problems. Hands and feet seem to be a common worry. As I said earlier, if necessary, hands can be put in pockets. Here's another couple of sneakies. Okay, so we've got two characters behind a fence. No need to worry about the feet. So yeah, what's this one? Behind a rubbish bin or rock. Again, no feet. Arms behind the back again. No hands. And carrying something. No hands. I'm sure you can work out a lot more. Alright, so we've got hints on lettering your work. Usually cartoon captions are a typeset, while comic strip dialogue is hand lettered. There are, of course, lots of examples of both to the contrary. Again, it brings us back to style. Some lettering is hurried and scratchy. Some is straight and deliberate. As with you, the drawing, as with the drawing, it depends on you and the feel you want your work to convey to its readers. In some countries, cartoonists opt to employ full-time letterers to letter for them. You won't be able to do that, so always use capital letters. They are easier to read when reduced in size. That's number one. So number two, to emphasize a word or words, write them in bold. If you've ever watched Doug TeNapel on his live streams, you'll notice he does sort of like italic when he wants a word to be sort of expressed a lot more, or bold, like if he wants it said differently. Number three, work out how much area you will need for your lettering and writing it out roughly. Sorry. Let's start again. Number three, work out how much area you will need for your lettering by writing it out roughly on a piece of scrap paper. 4. Never break a word in the middle. It looks awful and is hard to read. Yeah, I always hated that in like magazines and stuff, and it was like really hard to read. Alright, well, we'll leave it there for now. Hints on caricature, exaggeration, and distortion. So yeah, that's a good time to leave it. I'll see you in the next one.